What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Voice, and welcome everybody to the Facts Project. Today, my special guest, good friend, great comic creator, great comic artist, TJ Sterling from Ray Comics. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, what up, man?
I said it when you first got on. Dope ass background. For anybody that's not seeing what I'm seeing. All right, and I can literally pull up the comic that this is from, because this is probably, I'm gonna say, Okemus 1. That background. Am I getting that correct?
It's just promo art for the Kickstarter, no cover. It should be on the cover.
It should be on the cover, man. That's a hard ass cover, man.
I'm telling you, if I could just blank myself out, you could see more of it. It's pretty fucking wild, man.
Hey, man, you drew it. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, yes, sir, man. But yay, hey, everybody, what's up, man? It's your boy TJ Sterling, Ray Comics president, lead artist, storyteller, writer, comic book aficionado, and a lover of all things nerdy, sci-fi, podcasty. I'm ready to go. Let's do it. Let's talk.
Most definitely. And first, let's talk about Okemus number 6. Now, note, Okemus number 4, because I keep getting that messed up because this is 4 of 6 in this series. And necessarily, when I first got the first 3 books, that's episode 0, 1, 2, and 3. We get to the almost the origin story, not necessarily of Kale, the protagonist in this storyline. And notably, there's a lot of time jumps that are happening from the past, present, and future. Now, necessarily, there's of course, there's a lot of tech involved in this. There's a lot of sci-fi elements that are involved in this storyline. Could you let us know about Kale?
Yes, sir. I'd love to tell you. So the main character, Kale Alonso, is a consummate comic book orphan. Some typical, I would say some comfortable and used archetypes are in there in terms of like a character that doesn't have much family, but there's something special about him. No one really thinks there's anything special about him because why would they think one lone young black kid is special? You know what I'm saying? Especially in the terms of the world that he lives in terms of the world we live in. But there's definitely something special about this character. And the dope part about, you see, when you are introduced to the Okemus series with Okemus issue 0, you see Kale as a fully grown, matured adult, a hero that's seasoned, that's been doing it for a long time. He's probably in his 40s by the time you see him at Okemus issue 0. So you get kind of like a big budget action movie, you know what I'm saying? The first time you even see Okemus, and there's lots of action and suspense and drama. And I'm a big fan of martial arts and Sentai genre, so you see a little bit of that flavor in the very first book. And he's kind of towards the end of his journey. And then we kind of press pause on that. And then issue 1 picks up where the same character, Kale, is a young man. So before he has any powers at all. So it's kind of like, how did we get to the almost end of the story now back to the beginning? What's the significance of that time jump, and what does it spell for the rest of the series, go forward? So I like nonlinear storytelling. I'm a big Tarantino movie fan. Kill Bill is one of my favorite movies of all time. Pulp Fiction, just how stories can be spliced together in a nonlinear fashion. And just a quick example of something that I really thought was incredible was I was watching this show LA's Finest with Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba, 2 beautiful goddesses. And there's one episode where they start, the scene with, 2 young outlaws. And then they fast forward to another scene where there's a possible serial killer that looks like this young outlaw, but it was actually the younger version of the main character with a similar path. You know what I'm saying? So it confused the audience, it confused the people who watched it at first. Like, yo, what is this? Like, is this from something else? And it makes them think. And that's what we like to do at Ray Comics with our storytelling style, is to do stuff that makes you think, that kind of catches you off guard. Like, wait a minute, this isn't a regular origin story. This is way different than what I would expect when I picked up the book.
Right. And then we're basically seeing him grow throughout this whole journey, and we're seeing him battle the Makai, if I'm saying that correctly. Correct?
Well, the older version of Kale in issue 0 is battling the Makai.
Right.
The Makai are cybernetic, enhanced biomechanical monsters, creatures that are no longer human, but they're not machine either. They're kind of a mix between both,
Hmm.
but all animalistic, I'm saying, all reduced to primal instincts, if you will, to
Right.
kill, to hunt, to eat, and to survive. Um, issue one, so issue zero takes place in a desolate, dark future, much further into a very interesting timeline where issue one takes place in our regular time in the 2010s. I think 2015 is
Hmm.
when we have issue one when it debuts. So it's kind of a interesting space for the character because it's just modern day, and there's no monsters. It's regular everyday life, but the main character Kale feels that there's something wrong, senses that maybe he's not where he's supposed to be, which is kind of another interesting tug to kind of make you, the audience, realize that something else is going on. And then all of a sudden, these characters that are behind me, the
Hmm.
hunters, show up from this desolate future looking for Kale.
Yeah, and it's like he feels like he's being hunted, but that's not necessarily the case. And in the beginning, when they are searching for him, you kind of get that feeling within the comic. Are are they the antagonists, or are they actually there to help? And then you come to find that out later on.
That's correct. The question for me is always like, what makes a villain? I think, there's not, there's a reason why movies like, the Joker and actors like Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix win, these Oscar awards, because I think understanding what can push a character over the edge is more relatable than a character that can be altruistic and, perfect and, never ever make mistakes. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So I always like to kind of question what is a villain, what is, and also, again, I like to flip expectations. I like to just mess with people with the story. I want to like make them think. So it's like the characters that you think are cool looking and
Hmm.
you think would be the hero because that's what you're used to. You're going to get something totally different where all the hunters are actually the villains of the story, and they've killed people, and they've killed Mecca and done lots of horrible things to get to their goal over the years
Hmm.
before they even get into this main story.
Now, I always have an interesting hot take on the newest villain that has been introduced since 2018, Null, in the Marvel universe in the comics. Now, recently there's this storyline called King in Black that just happened. But if anybody knows the origin story of Null that Donnie Cates brought up, here is an a cosmic entity floating amongst the universe by himself, pretty much an introvert, not messing with anybody because there's no one there until the Celestials arrive, which then starts the creation of the universe and everything like that. And he feels bothered because he is an introvert and he feels as though he must attack. So and in essence of that, they throw him in a shell, and he's living in his own little sphere for a long period of time, and that starts the generation of the symbiotes, which was Venom, Carnage, and all the other parasitic creatures. But the thing is, I always look at his character as, I don't think of him as a villain, because like this wouldn't have happened if the world hadn't, or if the universe had not been interrupted, and yet it was. That's why he acts the way he acts. You know, I feel as
It's a
though
great point.
I feel personal feeling towards that story, because I was like, if I'm an introvert, I like to do things just chill by myself and without interaction from a lot of people, and when I get annoyed, then I have a reaction. That's how I feel about Noel.
I mean, that's a great point, man. And just shout out to Donnie Cates, man. Fun fact: him and I were interns at Marvel at the exact same time.
Wow.
Yeah, like he was an editorial intern, I was a production intern, and we both were in the Spider-Man parade back in 2009, and the Spider-Man float for the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade. So again, he's a friend of mine, and a fantastic writer. So shout out to Donnie.
Hmm. Definitely, man. Definitely.
But
He's always been a fabulous friend. It sucks that he's going to leave Venom. He actually announced that like last week that Venom 200 is going to be the last collaboration of him and Ryan Stegman doing that, and they pushed that boundaries as long as they've had, and they're just going
that's
to move
right.
on to better things, which is something to segue into what you're doing. So of course there's six issues in Okemus. You're already working on another book with Newton Lilavoy, creator of Crescent City Monsters, and you're doing, if I'm saying it correctly again, Villain Us.
Million us, yes, sir.
So
Yeah,
what is the inception of this storyline?
absolutely. So quickly, just to give people an idea, because I want you, just before I jump into that, Okemus is currently at issue 4. So we've got issue 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there's 5 books in total at the moment that you can get into, you can dive into and see what that story's like. Issue 5 is written, it's being drawn as we speak. And then issue 6 is going to follow up shortly afterwards. So that's going to close out the very first arc. And then we're
Mhm.
going to jump into another series, which is going to be basically a spin-off of Okemus and
That's what I
focused
expected.
on. Yes. So spin-off of Okemus would be the Tessina miniseries. So you see in the background the woman
Yep.
character. You
That's
see
what
her.
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah. So it's going to be our first woman-led series, which is going to be really dope because it's written a little different. It's more like a buddy cop sci-fi comedy.
Hmm.
The way it's kind of written, and you know, it's written from a woman's perspective from the future, you know what I'm saying, who used to be a villain, but now maybe changing her stripes, maybe trying to do something better with her life. Um, so I'm super excited about that. We have already 2 books done in the pipeline. We have them behind the scenes. We can't show them to anybody yet,
Wow.
just because Okemus issue 6 has to finish before we unveil anything. It's just essential from one story to follow the other for it to flow correctly.
Mm.
So I encourage anyone who's watching just jump on the series. We got digital versions, print versions. This series is great. We've been around for 5 years, killing it, and I know that you're going to love it. And back to other titles. So we have at Ray Comics quite a bit of books coming out,
Hmm.
which we're really excited about. Excuse me. Okemus Dark History is probably the one that you might see before Tessina. It all depends. They may drop at the same time or maybe before. Okemus Dark History follows Kale's parents in this, you know, desolate future timeline. So you get, you know, a big backstory behind the Okemus series and what it's about. And it's being drawn by Sean Damian Hill, who's an absolute beast, an incredible artist. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, he's killing it, man. He's about little over halfway done with the book, and you know it's being colored as we speak. So that's going to be a treat for you guys, I guarantee it. Um, and then after that, we have got 2 other really incredible books. The next one is Villain Us. Me and my good friend Newton Lilavoy are we are creating a cyberpunk noir tale
Mm.
where we're actually seeing the main character is a villain, and we're seeing it from his perspective. And you know, he's a very the character's name, which I think we can say, yeah, we can say this because we debuted some information on it earlier, is the main character's name is Shatter.
Hmm.
He's a very dark villain that, you know, is kind of maniacal, kind of crazy. Something happened to him in his past that changed the way he thinks, changed his brain chemistry. So, you know, his way of getting rid of problems is just, you know, killing folks and destroying, destroying companies and conglomerates. And he's just, you know, if you think of what Doctor Doom does on this massive scale,
Mm.
this is, you know, very much in that vein of a why can, you know, how can we love a villain, and what is a villain? Because I
Right.
think so many times, you know, peacekeepers and you know, people who are visionaries were branded villains, whether it's someone like Malcolm X or, you know, Martin Luther King.
Hmm.
You know, there's all these progressive individuals that thought outside the box, that challenge the status quo. And when you challenge the status quo, you know, when you're black or you're a person of color, period, usually you get murdered or you just disappear. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying? Like, think about these crazy stories, like the Asian woman in China who discovered the coronavirus, disappears out of nowhere,
Right.
nowhere to be found.
Hmm.
Like it does not strike folks as crazy. You know what I'm saying? That they will make you disappear when you're a person of color. Shit doesn't happen to white folks like that. It just doesn't. So
It's true.
um, but that said, so me and Newton, we love sci-fi and we absolutely love cyberpunk. Like we're huge cyberpunk fans, and we wanted to really tell a story that's, futuristic and noir and cyberpunk and just edgy. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that's where we're going with it. And the art's looking incredible, man. I mean, we're super close for the book to be done, and I just cannot wait to share it with everybody. It's going to be really incredible.
Now, of all the people to collaborate, when Newton was basically essentially when y'all brought up this idea, and note his first book line was a horror story based in New Orleans with a lot of Creole and Haitian backstory and everything like that. And you're figuring out like who is the best person to just put this together. Why Newton?
It's a great question, man. I mean, I honestly, comics to me are fun. Like, I don't
Yeah.
work because I think when you think about corporate America, you think about like a 9 to 5 job of any kind. You work with folks because you have to, not because you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, with comics, and when I started my business, I made it part of my credo. You know what I'm saying? Part of what we were as a company and who I was as a creator and a visionary, that I'm going to work with people that I respect, and B, that I admire, and also who I vibe with on like a natural level. Like Newton and I are very similar in terms of our analytical minds, and how we think and how we look at stuff, and our storytelling style, structure, and just our different view of like what we think comics should look like. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We just, and like I said, we became friends after being at various cons together over the years and being on panels together. And like I said, him and I just, we click and vibe on
Mm-hmm.
on just like a natural level. It's not really forced. So that's why I was like, yo, man, like what you doing, Doug? Like, let's work on
It
something.
was just that easy.
That's it. Like, it wasn't even like pulling teeth, man. To be perfectly honest, because I work with folks. I think any of us have tried to work with folks, and it doesn't pan out 100%. And I've been enough to really only run into that once. But every other person who I've worked with has been smooth sailing. It's been love. Again, Sean Hill's a good friend of mine. I love his work, and him and I, because I'm an artist too. So it's like when you are art directing another artist, I'm saying,
Yeah.
what you can help bring out of his strengths. You can see his strengths, like, yo, man, we can draw this a little better, or yo, why don't you try adding this? And it's, a really powerful collaboration. And another book that I also am working on is a book called Aliens, Pimps, and Genies. And it's a book with my good friend, Greg Anderson Elise.
Oh,
Um,
it's Nana. Okay.
yeah, the creator of It's Nana, the Weird Spider. And this book is a completely risque, off the wall sex comedy, because Greg and I at cons, if you've ever seen us together at cons, which you will at one point,
Mm-hmm.
we're just nasty motherfuckers, man. We talk about nasty shit. We're weird. Like we just he's flirting with motherfuckers. I might be flirting with somebody. Like you know what I'm saying? Like we just have a lot of fun, and we're freaked out here in the head. So we're taking all those weird, freaky experiences and stories we have and
Mhm.
inserting them into a book about aliens, pimps, and genies, and it's going to be absolutely ridiculous.
See, it's good to see the other side of you guys sometimes, man. Because I remember I just had a conversation with Sebastian Jones from Stranger Comics, and he threw me for a loop when he brought up the ruining Christmas idea, and I was like, wait, you had this storyline revolving around this nomadic young little girl, basically stranded throughout the wastelands, and have orcs and a lot of fantasy and everything like that. And you're doing a storyline on a bunch of elves who doing dick and fart jokes and talking about ruining Christmas. It's like, and he was like, "Yeah, people don't see that other side of me that often, but fuck it, man." But that's
It's true,
cool though.
man.
That's cool because you know what I'm saying. I guess the obvious thing to say is that you guys aren't one dimensional. You know what I'm saying? You do have other interests. There's a lot to your personalities than just, you know, what you're putting on a page or the first thing they put on the page. I'm pretty sure a lot of directors that have done movies or anything like that started out doing something that they actually loved and they thought that that was perfect. And then they got forced corporate wise to do things that, yeah, I could work with this, but this isn't really my niche.
Yeah, man, that's what it is. It's just like it's, how do you keep comic books pure? And well, how do you keep any creative enterprise pure? And I think
Hmm.
it's obviously the people you work with, it's the people you associate with, it's how you hold yourself in business, what your expectations are.
Hmm.
I mean, you walk into a con and you're only thinking about money,
Yeah.
you're never gonna have a good time. Like you're never gonna reach that because you're not, because conventions and larger events are about the people, and they're about networking and building and really um getting to know these fans. I mean, what I'm saying, when you think about the essence of comic conventions, I mean, first it started out in the 70s as a as an industry thing where it's like, okay, other fellow creators would show up and talk, and it was like a party.
Hmm.
But then the fans were able to come in and meet their favorite creators, and it was such a powerful experience for the fan. I mean, I know when I first met Todd McFarlane, I was like, yo, this is a dude I looked up to when I was a kid as an artist.
Hmm.
And it meant so much to me that he was cool and, signed some books. And then he took a look at my art and gave me some critiques. Like, it was one of the best days of my life professionally and creatively to be able to meet someone like that. So, um, you have to keep your creative endeavors pure by, again, just thinking about what makes sense, man, and not looking at it from,
Yeah.
like a check, if you will.
Yeah. And I guess it's not it's not totally beneath anybody to like push the envelope, whether it's jumping into the adult entertainment side of comics every once in a while, because you know it it's going to happen. I remember DC's Dark Metal came out a couple years back, and everybody just saw that as like this all aspiring comic and everything like that because of the world that basically brought up with the Dark Multiverse in the DC realm. And then maybe later on in that year, after that comic book was finished, they came out with the Terrifics, and it was basically about Mr. Terrific having adventures in the Dark Multiverse, but it was like wacky and weird. It was like an LSD trip. It looked like a Hunter S. Thompson book half the time. You know what I'm saying? So
That's right.
somebody thought of it from this perspective, and then somebody thought of it, but like, yo, this place is just weird. Let's just make it that way, and then let's do that. So
Yeah,
that works in both ways. Be like, somebody actually saw it's generally like somebody seeing a cave and somebody being frightened of it, and then you had that other person that says, let's go in and check that shit out.
that's right.
You know, but
Amen. Shout out to the brave people that go with that dive headfirst in the caves. You know what
yeah,
I'm saying?
I mean, I look,
Why not?
everybody has their Goonies aspirations. I am one of them. I mean, not to say that I dive head first into problems or anything like that, but necessarily if I want to be adventurous or anything, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. But to
Amen.
continue,
Amen.
to continue, there was something that happened today in the news. Now, Unique Studios, a Pan African comic book company with a lot of African superheroes, signs a 10-book deal with Dark Horse Comics.
That's right.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
Well, first of all, shout out to Roy Coupe, man. He's a good
Yeah.
friend and absolutely fantastic person, you know what I'm saying, as well as a talented writer and, incredible businessman. I'm just proud, really proud of that dude, because I feel like there's nothing that Royer can't do. And he's just a class act. So shout out to Royer. Um, I thought it was dope, man. I mean, last time me and Roy talked, like, we were definitely talking about, life and business and just like what it would like to, just pursuing more film stuff, more animation stuff, building our libraries, so on and so forth. And, I knew he was working on something. I didn't have an idea of what it was, what I'm saying, in terms of his next steps, because obviously this is a big deal. So I imagine they've been talking about it for a while. And, I honestly hope that it's extremely successful for him. I'm sure it will. I'm sure the paperwork's right, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do with it. Whether they're going to have a dark horse stable of artists, jump in the books, or how it's going to work. Or I'm very interested in the nuts and bolts of it.
Right, because if we do recall, I would say back in May, we had numerous comic book companies uh, during the racial disparities and the injustice and the happenings that were revolving around the George Floyd murder. that started to reach out as far as to Black creators and basically open up the doors for like the first time in their aspect. I believe it was Valiant, DC, and Marvel all came out and basically said that they want to integrate themselves in the market, ask for Black creators, as many as possible. 6 months passed, and do we see much?
I mean, not to my knowledge, except this is the only one that I'm just like, my eyebrows raised up. But
Hmm.
other ones, I didn't really see anything. I was kind of like, I said, like, I think, lip service is something that, every business does and makes them look like they're doing something, makes them look good to the shareholders. I mean, I'm not an environmentalist per se, but I'm like very pro recycling. So it's like when I read about recycling companies for years lying to the public, oh, yeah, well, you can recycle our product.
Right.
You can recycle our product. A strawberries container, which you thinks it's fucking clear, you don't use it for very long, it can be recycled, but apparently it was a complete lie. So people pander and give you lip service all day, no matter who they are.
Yeah, and it seems like even the comic book companies that basically came out and said those things weren't the only ones, because there was a ton of other companies that did the exact same thing. And later on down the line, 6 months later, we didn't really see exactly what we were doing.
Hmm.
What we were hoping for. I mean, I've noticed, of course, during that time, later on, maybe around 3 months down the line, there was DC's push at this, and it was the reintroduction of Milestone and bringing that universe basically back into the fold, honoring the great Dwayne McDuffie and Dennis Cohen's and everything, and kind of like getting that back on track. Even though a lot of us know the backlog and the horror story that happened back in like the '90s and the '80s, so it was I guess it ruffled feathers to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Do we know exactly what's going to happen? Because cinematically, they talked about Static Shock being in development. They've all, and in essence of them talking about Static Shock being in development, they said that they didn't want to release it cinematically because they felt it would be deemed too risky. You know, but a series
Mm.
maybe on HBO Max would help a little bit better. So when they start to use those words, when the vocabulary starts to switch up every once in a while, that's where I start to look at it as like it's not going to be perceived exactly how I want it.
That's right. Yeah, man, I think it's interesting because there's only one movie studio in my mind that has understood how to do comic book movies right in Marvel.
Hmm.
Because they spent so much time giving away their IP and sharing their IP with other companies to stay afloat, when they were hurting all those years ago.
Yeah.
And you saw like companies like Fox and Sony really butcher stories that could have been good. And I think the best storytellers, the people who create the stories. So it should be Marvel and their team of artists and writers that they're sitting down and having a powwow about what works, across 10 years or 20 years or 30 years and planning it out. Fun fact about the comic book industry, this is what they do with books. So let's say I get hired to draw a book, it would be my job to draw three to five books behind the scenes before we even promote it. So when you've got issue two already ready, then you got issue three, then issue four, and by the time people are getting ready to drop issue five, you're on or another two or three of them. So it's kind of like you have everything planned out in advance. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
something I learned from a good buddy of mine who's working at DC and then eventually moved over to Marvel. So um, the industry is about planning, and I think Marvel does it the best with their movies, and hopefully in other studios will figure that same formula out or another formula that works for them.
Right. Right. That's true. Now, and to get back to Unique's brand new acquisition, is this generally where indie comics want to go? Do they do is this I mean, it's a good move for him, but is it necessarily the same thought process in line for a lot of indie companies that are out there to basically get a good sized book deal with a major distributor?
I mean, I would say that it's definitely something to consider seriously and think about as part of your business. I think someone like Roye, who has built a very strong fan base online through Kickstarter and through his own personal means of reaching out to people, um, he's got a dedicated fan base that
Hmm.
will follow him wherever, which is exactly what we want as creators. That's like the number one thing, no matter what you do. And this is something that Joe Casada told me, along with a group of other interns over pizza at Marvel back in 2010. That what gets people to come to what you were doing is butts in the seats. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? You put in seats, it's like going to a baseball game. Like your title, your character, your IP has to be the one that are hitting the balls out of the park, so the fans will come to see this show. And that it's something that always stuck with me. Like but building the right way. I think for me, building the right way was always one on one with folks, being real, being a person, and getting to know them, and really, what I'm saying, means a lot. So I think with something like this, with the the acquisition. Well, it wasn't an acquisition. As I was reading it, it was a distribution deal
Right.
and a publishing book. Imagine with the Dark Horse reach, it kind of spreads across, not only across the United States, but further into, um,
Oh yeah,
further into
international.
other, into sure, right, going everywhere. And with something like that, I think it's pretty dope. So it's like Unique Studios becomes a worldwide brand, even more than it was before. And I guess for me, I always get curious about distribute. Well, in terms of how are they distributing? Because obviously we had this issue with Diamond that happened, and
Yes.
this whole freeze that even the big dogs like DC couldn't get their books out. So it's like, what does that look like for did Dark Horse have any issues? Did it have any other? I don't know. I always say to people when they ask me about that, I'm like, yo, on New York Comic Con 2019, I get approached by a rep from Diamond. And personally, for me, what they were trying to offer deal wise was not something that was attractive to me, because I would make more money going to cons and selling my books by selling my books online than what they were going to offer me. Now I
Yeah.
would get more visibility, but at the same time, like I don't. That's another tip too. I want to tell people, like, don't sell yourself short in your IP, because everybody wants a piece of creative IP because they know that, especially if you've been around, that they can make money off of it. But
Oh,
you
of
got to
course.
make sure that the paperwork's right, or don't give away something that you love just for scraps. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. I mean, I can see the pros and the cons from it, from your perspective. And a lot of other indie comic companies would possibly like see the would like to hold on to a lot of their IP, hold on to a lot of their storylines and everything, and just hope that they wouldn't get skewed in any type of fashion, even in the distribution process. And then on the other end, you can basically see it as I get a 10 book deal to basically showcase my book to people that normally would not see it. And on the regular
Right.
side, I do get to go to cons, and nationally, I get my book out there. Would I would probably make maybe the same type of money, but to have more of a broader reach versus the money part, that's the weighing scale, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, any deal you go with, I mean, whether it's for Image or you're doing a co-collaborative deal with like Aftershock or some of these other small Dynamite, some of these smaller publishers, there's going to be something in there where you are in effect giving something away. It's just not like you get 100% like you would before. Like there's always a give and take. So I said, I think it just depends on the business person, and I know for a fact that Roy is super sharp. So it's like absolutely certain that whatever deal he struck, it worked so well for what he's doing with Unique Studios. And 10 books is a lot of books. It's definitely solid, but I mean, I imagine it's like them testing the waters to say, hey, what's how many people will come over to this ball game? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And how many people will this what we have going on? and then they maybe renegotiate at some point in time, and maybe it's even a bigger partnership, and that's really dope in my mind because it makes Dark Horse, typically fans that they have at Dark Horse is really kind of like grungy, um millennial, what's it called, it was in rock type kids, like it's the
Hmm.
Dark Horse books are always been like a very, it's like the emo group,
Yeah,
comic book company, you know what I'm saying, like they
they're
they
kind of like
do
they're
the
the goth kids.
really demon. Yeah, they're the goth kids. Marvel's kind of I'd say, well, DC's kind of the jocks. Marvel's like the nerds that get the hot chicks, you know what I'm saying? And then you've got the goths that are Dark Horse.
Right,
For
right.
real. It's like, yo, dude. The Jack's like, yo, we've been around here way longer. We got like these dope, very manly stories. And
Hmm.
Marvel's over here, like, making billions of dollars and bagging the bad chicks because, that's how
Oh,
that works.
definitely.
It's crazy.
So to get back to Okemus 4, now released in 2020 during the pandemic, the final goal
Yes, sir.
you raised a little more than $20,000 for this book, which was amazing. And
Yes, sir.
I look at that time frame within 2020. A lot of indie companies basically putting out their books through Kickstarter and everything like that. The fact that that's on your resume, that you released a book in the middle of a pandemic and it made the money that it made, there's a lot of work that goes into that.
Amen.
Like
Absolutely, man.
how did that make you feel?
Oh, yo, you know what I'm saying? Like, so here's the crazy thing, man. Like, I've been grinding the con circuit for a long time. And I mean, because this is the thing, like, I look at it like this, like, you can be visible online. You can be visible. There's a million different ways to skin a cat. There's lots of different ways to get to the finish line. You could, take an airplane, or you could, stay and run, or you could take whatever way you take to get to the finish line. As long as you get there, that's all that matters. So it's like, I've never taken too much stock in building an online. The real currency is people, one-on-one connection. That's to me what makes is the essence of what comics and comic conventions and these stories are about, is relating to the writers, relating to the stories. It's a personal thing because it's personal entertainment. You know what I'm saying? Like, people take stories and they really like adjust them and process them different. Every single person is different. That's why it's like kids like us grew up talking about X-Men with our friends in class, and everybody had a different perspective. Oh man, Psylocke is better. Oh, Wolverine's better. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always one of those things that it's a very personal entertainment experience. So um for me, man, I put a lot of time in investing in people and doing conventions. I did 5 years worth of conventions back about 10 to 15 years, all over the states. You know what I'm saying? So I was really building a solid fan base in person. I was doing lots of book signings, doing tons of events that were comic book centered. And then prior to me getting into the business as a professional in 2015, I had already had been circulating the convention scene like since 2005. So like from 2005, 2010, when I was an intern at Marvel, I was around the convention scene, getting to know my stars, getting to know the companies. What would it look like to work for one of these companies? Did I want to work for these companies? Did I want to
Right.
just publish? It helped me understand more of what the business was. So taking that knowledge and being like, and then those experiences and those relationships I already built, it was like, okay, cool. I already did media before it was a platform. Like I was doing social media in person, the old school way.
Right.
So when a lot of people like, yo, how can you make 20K in a month and it's your very first Kickstarter? I'm like, well, it's the fans, man. They showed up, they were there,
Yeah,
and it's the same folks that I've been building with for the past decade, basically.
definitely. The one thing I equate that storyline to, and this is going to seem odd. I used to be in the nightclub business for about 10 years. So I ran a nightclub for 10 years, and one of my DJs was D Nice. So if anybody that does not know the story
Yeah.
of how D Nice basically blew up this year, um, necessarily he hasn't been that big on social media. A lot of people know him as being an old school artist from BDP. A lot of people know him as a DJ. Didn't really have that big of a social media following. Decides to do just old school live streams on Instagram. Back when you could do that, because now they'll shut you down in like 30 minutes. So he decides to do that. And because of the fact that this man has shaked hands and, you know what I'm saying, hugged everybody in the business, and it all capitalized within a week. All of a sudden, he just kept doing these streams and they started to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's because this man has basically been around the entire globe and he has been the nicest dude possible, shaking hands, kissing babies, being the politician that he is. You know what I'm saying? And then all of a sudden it just blew up, and it blew up. This is your first Kickstarter. This was kind of his first like jump on social media. And then all of a sudden it grows. You go look at D's page now, it's got $2.4 million, 2.4 million followers on his page. But people think it's equated to
It's
the fact
crazy. Yeah.
that, you know, somebody of that age who has been around the block, necessarily didn't really do a lot of social media before. But the thing is, whenever he's out in public, he's not skewed in the persona that he is. And I feel the same with you. This being your first Kickstarter, you've been around the entire country selling and showcasing your book, whether the book has been in front of them or you've had to be the mouthpiece of how it's been perceived to the customer. And then all of a sudden you do your first Kickstarter and it's like it's like magic. It looks like it's not that much work, but it's actually years of work. It's decades of work.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, man. Because again, like, people are just like, yo, man, how do you, like, there's no real bullet. And I was trying to that, instead of thinking about how much money you make or focusing on the money part, because I mean, comics are expensive, I get it, but it's like, if you're really about this life, like you got to sacrifice. So your income tax return comes in, save that bad boy. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Put money away for like a year or two before you start investing in
Mhm.
in anything. Like just play, like take the old school business mentality of save your money, build a business, do it that way instead of always expecting folks to kind of give their money. You know what I'm saying? Like
It's true.
you can't be gimme, gimme, gimme all the time. Like you got to invest your own money in there too. Like you got to be your ultimate Kickstarter.
You can be the best salesman possible and still have a shitty product. You might be able to sell salt to a snail, but the salt don't taste like salt. So necessarily, I've seen the cats do the crazy Neds type deal with their comics and everything, and then you go in and read it and be like, who wrote this shit? Like
Yeah.
like it's been perceived as that. So necessarily when you see a lot of companies that are basically starting out, they're not sort of perpetuating how they're going to write their story, how they're going to put it out. Are there any cliffhangers possible? Is there an origin story to this person? Is there anybody else within this storyline that could carry the book if needed to? You know, those are the questions that I would look for in how this is going to get put out there. Because regardless of being in the indie world, and there's a lot of great stories out there, there's also a bunch of shitty ones. Sorry to
Yeah,
say.
man. And see, the thing too is for me, it's there's so many different types of books, and it's always good to see a variety. I guess for me, like when I want people to see myself as a creator in the books we put out, I want it to be like, yo, that's not like any story I've seen,
Right.
or the storytellers aren't the same. And it's like so many, companies are using, like types of stories that are very much recycled. They've been done before, and
Hmm.
it's a little shame for me to see because I'm like, for uniqueness, I want to see more difference. But sometimes people just like a good old superhero story, and that's totally cool. You just got to do what you like, and then get that group of folks that do like it as well.
Yeah, because what we've seen in the past year or so in the world of indie comics is that people have come to realize that there's actually genres in comic books. Like people have come out of the blue and be like, I've never seen a horror comic book before. I was like, you haven't? I was like, at all. Like I never knew that there was like sci-fi driven comic books. I thought they were all superhero based. No, that's
Mhm.
it's like I remember reading Brother Man comics back in the day, like back in like the 90s and everything. That had nothing to do with being a superhero at all. You know,
Yeah.
for anybody that had the chance to dabble in those comics, it was pretty much an everyday tale about, Brother Man in that comic. And to see like people in awe that you can actually genre bend in comics, or it kind of confuses me to a sense, because they think of comics as just like one-sided. There's only one way you can write them. There's only one way you can draw them. Why do it this way? But then the best storylines come out of like comics that you don't see even brought into that fashion. V for Vendetta is a comic book. History of Violence is a comic book. Road to Perdition is a comic book.
Comic book, yeah.
Those are comic books. I mean, it's a gangster tale, a sort of like dystopian futured uh glass ceiling type of movie, and then History of Violence is just like a dope ass story tale. Some amnesiatic man who comes to find out that he was a hitman before he lost his memory. Like that's a dope storyline.
Hmm.
And they were all comic books and very great movies.
Yes, sir. Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I think some of the best movies ever have been, are a comic book format, or have either come from comics or follow a comic book style format. Like one of my favorite movies is The Mask of Zorro. And when you think of this movie, it's very much like it's a superhero movie, but it's so well done. You have the old man character, you have the young hero, or the young coming of age hero that's finding his way. I'm saying? It's very much a powerful origin story, a beautiful woman that is connected somehow, like a very evil villain. Like the story's been done a million times, but it's done so well that you had to think that obviously Zorro has been a comic book before. It's been, a novel. It's been a story for a long time. But the comic book style format is something that's kind of tried and true, and it works. And it's, Westerns copied it. Like there's so many things that have
Yeah.
copied comics for forever.
Yeah, you know how many arguments I got with people and told them that Riverdale is Archie Comics? Like, these were like arguments I would have with friends. It was like,
Yeah.
yo, this real like dark character called Jughead. I'm like, Jughead, Archie? I'm like, that's an Archie comic. Veronica,
That's right.
Betty and Veronica. This is all
Yeah.
an Archie comic. They just made this dark ass tale revolving around the characters from Archie Comics, and that's like a teenage slapstick love story comedy, all brought into one, revolving around high school tumultuous relationships. I mean, that can happen, and people don't necessarily get that in their head about that.
That's right. Yeah, man. I said it's like the beautiful part about inspiration and where it comes from is it can be really anywhere. So it's like you get something like Archie and you want to make it dark and gritty and weird. I mean, that's just kind of dope. And one of my favorite things is when I think what was this? They did like a parody of the Power Rangers years and years ago, where it was I think it was Joseph Kahn, that video director. He did like a very grungy, gritty version where like Zach was doing coke and killing people, and like
Wow.
it just I love shit like that, man. Like it's just it's
Yeah,
crazy to me because the gritty part, where like just the polar opposite of what a normal story is always fun to see. And so we hope to do stuff like that with our books, man. Just tell stories that are just like off the wall and different and just kind of genre bending, if you will.
definitely, man. Now, what do we where do we see in these next two issues where Okemus could end up as far as the story of Kale? And I mean, no, now I don't want to tease it for anybody that hasn't read the book, but Barnabas is a badass villain, bro.
Yeah. So at this point, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, I'm gonna get into some spoiler stuff. Just a little bit, not a whole lot, but
Yeah, don't
there's
kill.
a little bit of spoiler stuff if you haven't read the earlier issues. so what we're going to see with Otis issue 5 and 6 is, so at the end of issue 4, we see Kale has taken on a different transformation. He went from, kind of the how I say, the hunted, and he now is literally a hunter. He has donned or absorbed the same abilities of the people that are coming after him.
Mm-hmm.
And doesn't know why, like when there's some type of genetic connection between him and then one of the other characters that's a villain that's pursuing him. So there's this weird tether that we're going to explore in issue 5 and what that means, and we're going to get a little bit into the history of what it is that's making these characters who they are and why they're doing what they're doing. So it's going to be very much a calm, chill, more story driven narrative for number 5. And then issue 6 is going to be kind of like the climax, what I'm saying? That's going to be a maxi size issue with, a battle royale, if you will, because
Wow.
at the point, Kale is a force to be reckoned with. He was, a scared little kid, and, now he's, grown to be relatively formidable. So how do these people that are tasked with taking him, taking him back into the split future, how are they going to accomplish their mission? Will they accomplish their mission?
Right.
And we kind of see this again, the aftermath of what will a group of people do? What's the furthest that they will go to accomplish their mission? And you kind of saw that in issue 3 of Okemus, that Sada, the leader of the hunters, killed over 200 people.
Yeah.
And didn't blink an eye, like, because he's that determined to finish his mission.
I was
How far will he go in issue 6 to?
Yeah, I was just about to say that. Like, it almost came to the point where he's like desensitized to the amount of murder that he can basically put out there. And I see that happening to Kale as well.
Oh yeah. That's why it's kind of interesting, man, because like I said, like all of the destruction that Kale causes throughout issue 3 and 4, I'm sure there's folks that have been murdered, that have been killed, that have been, that, in his wake, he's, become maybe what they thought he was, what I'm saying? Maybe, or, maybe he's fighting to not become that. And that speaks to the dark side we all have. Like, are we going to take a step over that line and take it to that next level where we're, no longer, in touch with our humanity?
It's true, man. It's true. And when should we start to expect issue 5 to come out?
Man, I'm a bust my so not so fun fact. My Wacom tablet, which I draw Okemus on, I draw digitally now. It stopped working maybe 2 months after I completed issue 4. So the workhorse got tired and needed some new shoes, and I had to send it back into Wacom, and I should be getting it back tomorrow. So I'm actually going to be starting drawing Okemus 5 this weekend, and I'm going to grind. I'm going to push really hard and try to get it to everybody within the next couple of months. And then my goal would be by the end of this year to have issue 6 done, or at least halfway done. So by the time 2022 rolls around, that series finishes, and then we've got other books that we can kind of give everybody too.
Bro, that's excellent. And look, for anybody that has not integrated themselves with this storyline, please feel free to do so. And TJ, how can these people get these books?
It's super easy. I'm everywhere. At TJ Sterling Art is my Instagram. If you want to follow my Ray Comics page, it's at Ray Comics, RAE Comics. But I would say go to the website. We've got digital comics, we've got t-shirts, we got toys, we got art prints, we've got tons of books, variant covers, the whole nine. Raycomics.com, RAE comics.com. And yeah, I would absolutely love for you guys to take a look at the series. I guarantee you will love it.
Now, one person that I hope that Comic-Cons open back up, and I'm pretty sure that you would hit the market just as hard, being as how you've had like this, your first Kickstarter, and how successful that has been for you to get back out there in the game. It's going to be special.
Man, I can't wait, bro. Like I said, for me, conventions are really the lifeblood for independent artists. You know what I'm saying? Like Kickstarters are good, but like I said, it's between you and me and whoever's watching, it's like Ray Comics as a business in 2019 made 35K. You know what I'm saying? It's like that's really good for a side business, for a business that you're doing on, doing. I don't want to say on the side because I spend more time doing this than my full-time job. But we are doing this as a passion business and building it so it can kind of take over your full income and whatnot. We do really, really good on 2019. And the beautiful thing about cons is that you just never know what type of stride you're going to hit. You could go to a different show and make 800 or 1,000 or 2,000 in a day, or you could make $5,000 in a weekend, or you could make nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it's true.
The excitement of conventions is always kind of like there for me, and because I love it. I like meeting people. I like building with them. I mean, when you can treat these people are really dope, they got your back. I mean, I've been invited to weddings. I've stayed at their house for cons. Like it's really like, it's a beautiful thing, man. The fans are dope, and I really wouldn't be here without their support, but for like all the years, prior to that, man. So I can't wait to see everybody in person again. It's a big thing for me.
That's what's up, man. Well, TJ, I appreciate you doing this, brother. This has been dope. All right.
Hey, man, anytime, Doug.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir, man. And please, everybody, Master Facts, watch his show, watch all of his previous episodes, follow my man. Everything this dude does is dope, and I'm just happy to be a part of it in some way, shape, or form.
I appreciate that, bro. Now I ain't even got to say anything. For real.
I mean, I gotta plug you, man. You plugging me, like I gotta plug you too, Doug.
All day. That's my job. All right,
yes,
my
sir.
man. All right, Facts Project, and we out.